Hi, good evening.
I thank you. Thank you for joining us, Prof. Alam ko busy kayo ngayon, lalo na ngayon.
Yeah.
Anyway, sige. Let's bring on our other guest, si Attorney Tony Lavinia. Siya po ay lead convener ng isang grupo na ang tawag po ay Movement Against Disinformation. Good evening, Attorney Tony.
Gandang gabi, good evening, Mon, Dean. Good evening po, Dean Rachel.
Good
Well, thank you
evening.
for joining us, Tony. I understand, kagagaling mo lang sa klase mo.
Maraming pinanggalingan marami rin akong election-related talk today. Naka-anim ata ako today.
Wow.
Maraming naghahanap ng information at analysis Kasi nga, di ba, yung what's out there, you have to make sense.
Ayan. No, actually, that's the same thing. No, why we brought the two of you here tonight. No, so let's start off. No, let's go straight into our subject. No, let's start first with yung what's been happening sa social media. No, Attorney Tony at saka Prof. Rachel, dumami pa ba ang mga fake news na kumakalat sa social media? How can you describe the situation? Attorney Rachel.
Hindi ako attorney,
I'm sorry.
Professor.
sorry.
Well, from our experience in Tsek.PH, we see that nag-triple or even quadruple yung number of disinformation that's coming out as compared to 2019. So since I have only 2019 as comparison, since Tsek.PH began in 2019.
Okay. It's attorney. Ano naman ang experience na, Tony?
Ganun din, no? And more importantly, sa Facebook, mas subtle siya, di ba? Ang disinformation kasi micro-targeted, community pages, yung ganon. And then of course, ang mas alarming actually yung sa YouTube, sa TikTok, kasi na-amplify din ulit sa Facebook, di ba? Kasi naman Facebook ang ginagamit ng karamihan. But na-amplify yung disinformation na nandun sa YouTube at nandun sa TikTok. Yung Twitter parang hindi masyado. Siguro doesn't. Pero babantayan mo rin siya lalo na pag last few days na of the elections, di ba? Yung things like may namatay na kandidato, may mga sex scandal, yung mga ganong klaseng disinformation ay pwede gamitin ng Twitter din dyan.
Okay, pero let's isa-isahin natin yan, attorney tsaka prof, no? Mukhang Facebook ang di ba? Pinaka sentro ng efforts nitong mga taong ito. And what caught my attention was what you mentioned, Attorney Tony, na merong mga sites na merong mga pages rather ng Facebook na hindi naman political. Entertainment daw eh. Yung iba naman mga parang mga video games ang pinag-uusapan ng Facebook page. Pero yun ang pinagagalingan ng mga disinformation. Ano yung masasabi niyo tungkol doon?
Actually, what's happening now is more than it's coming from Facebook. Facebook is used as a distribution media. Most of it are created for YouTube, for TikTok, and then it's shared. So, nagiging amplifier ang Facebook rather than the creator. So, yun yung nangyayari.
So, kumbaga, Facebook na ngayon, TikTok na ba ang at saka YouTube ang talagang favored na distribution. Doon una linalagay yung mga content na ito.
Yes. And then may problema kasi dahil by the way, Mon, all of these social media sites have community policies, that actually explicitly say na hindi pwedeng disinformation, hindi pwedeng fake news, di ba? Hindi pwedeng, especially yung harmful ones that kill people like red tagging. Talagang bawal yan sa mga sites. Ang problema namin palagi, and sa movement against disinformation, we really took the effort to write, to tell them this should be taken down, etc. Ang bagal talaga nila mag-decide, di ba? Kung fake news at lalo na yung harmful fake news that can kill people like human rights related, dapat immediately pinupull down mo, di ba? But and then ang problema namin ngayon, na-discover kasi I've actually personally complained with some of the things that I've seen, di ba? From TikTok and from from YouTube, wala silang, well, they will say na wala naman kaming power over those, di ba? Totoo naman, di ba? But
Mm.
allowing those videos to be posted is another thing, di ba? Without any screens. Yun lang yung ano namin. And so right now, to be honest, we are trying to figure out how to hold them accountable without also getting too much intrusion from the government, because we also don't trust necessarily the government, di ba, to regulate the platforms properly, di ba? Because freedom of speech and expression is concerned. So kailangan mo siyang i-balance, no?
Okay.
Right now, for sure, we're going, you must have seen, we're going after government officials, no? That are red tagging, kasi red tagging has become a big thing in this political campaign. So ang dami ng cases against Undersecretary Badoy, for example,
Mhm.
no? Because,
Mhm.
that's one way naman of going after the originators of the fake news.
Sige. Pero attorney at saka prof, no, if we step back a bit, no, dati nang may fake news, hindi ba? I mean, kahit wala pang internet, marami ng fake news noon. Ang kaibahan ngayon, itong mga internet platforms, itong mga social media, parang sobrang mas malakas kesa sa traditional media tsaka sa traditional way of distributing information. At tulad ng binabanggit po, Attorney Tony, ang hirap, parang ano bang, what is the way to control that? No? Is there some kind of regulation na pwedeng ma-develop na kung merong fake news ay somebody should be held accountable? Professor,
Ah,
Rachel, ang
as
tingin niyo
as
siya?
as as was said, no, the delicate balance is between freedom of speech and then yung pagkakalat ng fake news. So
Hmm.
it's also very hard to say that there has to be regulation, like what kind. It's still a
Hmm.
big debate among those who are really concerned about yung paglalaganap nitong mga disinformation na to. So what we need to really do at the moment is to really watch out and to flag these disinformation sites, and as
Mhm.
said, to try to go after, no, the specific persons who are, or companies who are spreading fake news. I mean, that's what we can do at the moment. Plus, of course, the whole big issue about media literacy that needs to be enhanced in this country.
Oh, sige. Well, yung
Yeah.
media literacy is something very interesting. But let's tackle that in a bit in a while. You were going to say something, Attorney Tony.
Yeah, well, I would agree with Professor Rachel. Of course, media literacy is important. Accountability for the big actors. And i-expound ko lang ng konti yon. Um, uh, we kind of know, and there's research also that supports that, no, especially by Jonathan Ong and his colleagues, that ano no na behind this is di ba, is an industry, no? And it's a parallel industry to di ba, the public relations, advertising, communications industry.
Hmm.
Mon, I mean, and
Hmm.
you know that industry also very well, di ba?
Yes.
Um, and so we actually need to figure out how to crack that, di ba? Kasi like ako as a forensic lawyer on these things, I mean, it would be nice if there were exposures, di ba? If colleagues of people that see their other colleagues doing this, di ba? Moonlighting or having parallel special operations for this type of thing are doing it. It's a disservice to their industry, it's a disservice also to our society. So sana meron tayong crack na makita. Parang ngayon wala pa tayong cracks na nakikita. Maraming mga nagpapa-confidentially interview, di ba? But we don't really see cracks na parang tinatanggap ng industry na ginagawa nila ito, di ba? Of course, some will say they're doing it on the positive side, kaya angels, hindi trolls, di ba? But I think we have to see if we can do that. Pero sa akin personally, mas personal ito kasi even in MAD we have this debate, no, kasi like ako, I'm on the side na dapat walang pakialam yung gobyerno.
Hmm.
Uh, sa free speech ng individual or ng private, even private company, etc. Kasi ano,
Mm.
unless of course clear and present danger, the usual rules, no? But I really don't trust the government to do that. I was against the social media registration bill that thankfully Duterte vetoed, because it would have violated right to privacy and also freedom of speech of people, no? Um, uh, but I am for civil liability, civil accountability, especially the social media platforms. Kasi
Anong
otherwise,
ibig
cut and mouse tayo palagi, di ba? Cut and mouse tayo palagi dun sa mga content creators. Dapat tulungan naman tayo ng mga social media platforms actively, aggressively, di ba? By making them liable when harm happens.
When you say
Uh,
civil liability, attorney, what do you mean? Anong ibig sabihin nun?
they have to pay for people. For example, if people get killed because of red tagging that
Mhm.
happened in their platform, they should pay the family of those people who were killed. As simple as that.
Okay.
Or if a terrorist act happened, di ba?
Mhm.
And they were complicit in doing that. Yung ganon. Ang barrier doon, honestly, we consider that also to try to hold them, at least to have their behavior change, di ba? The
Mm.
algorithm. Alam mo yung kailangan talagang gawin naman talaga dito is to change the algorithms. Because, but the algorithms kasi is the one that makes them the richest companies in the world, di ba? So it's
Medyo.
like killing their golden egg, di ba? Yun yung
Yes.
ano. But ideally kasi yun ang dapat baguhin. If they
Mm.
were responsible people, dapat baguhin nila yung algorithm na hindi na sa controversial, hindi na sa, di ba yung gano'n na classes sa outrageous. Kasi yun ang inaano ng algorithm eh. The
Mm.
more hateful you are, the more aggressive you are, di ba? The more you will be liked, the more you will be followed.
Mm.
So, ang ano ko doon is, uh, yung civil liability sana nila for harm that they cause to society and to individuals. Ang
Okay.
hitch lang doon, syempre dapat mataas yung price, di ba? For it to be a
Mm.
change in behavior. Um, like tobacco, di ba? Yung gano'n naman, tobacco lawsuits is about that eh. Ang problema natin dyan, usually when you file a lawsuit naman for liability, you pay ano tawag nito, filing fee
Yes.
that is
Attorney
based
Tita.
on the amount you're asking for, di
That's right.
ba? So for
Oo.
example, if I have a client who was killed because he was red tagged, well, this is true. I'm just doing it hypothetically, but it really happened. He was red tagged. Uh, uh, if his family agree, I could file a lawsuit and ask for the value of his life and his future life and future earnings, di ba? That
Mhm.
could go up to 10 million, 20 million pesos, for example. But I have to find maybe 100,000 to file that filing fee. Yan ang
Yeah.
problema. So we need to
Okay.
figure that out.
Sige.
Maybe the judiciary can have rules for that, or maybe we need foundations that can fund lawsuits to make them accountable. Yun lang.
Okay. Okay. So, but okay, that's on the legal side. On the fact checking side, Professor Rachel, no? I mean, you've been hard at work on this, no? Nakikita ko naman lumalabas yung post ninyo. What's your anong reading mo? What can you say about your experience so far in these elections, no? Um, Effective ba itong fact-checking process, no? Nakakatulong ba ito, and what more can be done in order to make it more effective?
Um, in previous elections, prior to the growth of social media, most of the disinformation had been limited to block timers on radio, or bot operators within the traditional media. That
Mm.
was easier to address. What makes it difficult now is because it's coming out of everywhere, of all the platforms, and as Attorney Tony said, it's targeted, no? Because for example, for each platform, you actually have an age group that's the users, diba? So, for example, Facebook would probably target the 30 and above, while TikTok would be 30 and below. So
Yes.
each application has a target, and then one disinformation is also multiplied into the different types of platforms. So you just have to create one concept, disinformation concept, and then you basically spread it in the different platforms with the different audiences. Kaya ang bilis ng distribution, ang bilis rin ng um, pagkalat, di ba? So
Yes.
in terms of Tsek.PH, what we're trying to do is it makes it more difficult because now we have to monitor all those platforms. Although we do see multiple nga, what we've seen is multiple entries of the same
Mm.
disinformation. So
Mm.
um, said in many ways, di ba? So from text from a text post in Facebook or Twitter, then it's translated to video on YouTube and shortened even for video for YouTube Shorts and TikTok. But it's the same message and it keeps getting
Yeah.
repeated. And of course, the more you repeat something, the
Mm.
more believable it becomes, right? And the
Yeah.
more different people repeat it, then it creates an echo chamber. So when we talk about algorithms, actually, even in that, there's a lot of individuality. Kasi how do you create an algorithm? Diba, it's your friends and the network of your friends. So
Yes.
if you keep on, if you have the same network of all of you were in a particular group, let's say you're all loyalists, so it reinforces this information which spread within you, within your group, gets reinforced. And then if you have another minority in your network, then that is also shared there, and it could also multiply in the other networks, and that's what's happening.
Mm.
So what we're trying to do in Check.PH is also reach all those platforms. And so we've also created fact checks that addresses all forms, and we also try to multiply our fact checks into the different media. Kung baka kung nasan yung disinformation, nandun din kami. Now, how
Yes.
effective is that? It's really actually David and Goliath type of fight, and we realize that. But we are hoping that it makes people think that we're
Mhm.
creating a fact checking state of mind that will be more long term. Because as long as people are aware, because if we keep silent, if there's nobody doing fact check, then this will just keep on, the disinformation will eventually become believed to be true. But if there are fact checkers who are trying to make noise, even if nada-drown out kami, in the long run, makikita ng mga tao na bakit may fact check, 'di ba? Ibig sabihin may hindi totoo, right?
Mhm.
And then
Mm.
what we try to do also is make sure that our fact checks are backed by very good and credible sources, including, as far as economic studies, if it's an economic disinformation, we're not doing fact checks based on hearsay, but really looking at sources that people can quote and argue with. And that's what we're hoping also, to get people to think more than anything, no, and face, and that's the only way we can face this information
O sige,
challenge.
I want to pick up on that point and bring Attorney Tony into the picture as well, no? Kasi sinasabi mo, Prof. Rachel, na at the end of the day, kailangan mag-isip yung mga tao eh. Di ba? So, ang problema is, wala tayong masyadong ginagawa sa mga eskwelahan, sa pagturo sa mga bata, no? Paano mag-isip tungkol sa mga bagay na ito? I mean, in other countries who have faced similar problems, I can cite a few. For example, the country like Finland, they instituted talagang a very serious media literacy program. Mula kindergarten na yata hanggang college, meron silang ganong literacy program sa kanilang mga eskwelahan eh. Bakit hindi natin gawin dito sa Pilipinas? Kasi, mukhang itong fake news sa social media talagang bahagi na ng buhay natin ito eh. Parang ganon, hindi ba?
That's easier
What
said than done.
I know. It's not, pero, I mean,
Ah,
some
ano,
other countries have done it. Nagawa
yeah,
nila. So,
I'm my other job, Mon and
mm,
professional is actually I'm a philosophy teacher. Actually, yun ang first love ko talaga. I've been a
okay.
philosophy teacher for 40 years already, and a law professor only for 32 plus years. Uh, and it's challenging, di ba? It's challenging to make people think and make people di ba? Including young people, including privileged people, to actually see beyond the convenient, no? But may ways naman to do that. I mean, there are ways to do that. There are methods to do that. Actually, I've been able to find new ways, especially napaka-visual kasi mon yung ano, 'di ba? Yung generation na ito, so you have to actually learn to use visual aids in helping them to think. I mean, so that has to be a priority. Thankfully, there might be a chance to do that because everyone agrees then na the educational system is really, it was already on crisis before, di ba, in the transition to K to 12, ang dami nating nakitang gaps and problema. I support K to 12, pero in the transition talagang ang daming nakita natin na problema, no? I mean, with the pandemic, mas grabe pa. So there's now a chance to really revamp the whole thing, especially if you want to catch up with our neighbors, no? And that, I think, should be really a priority kasi tama ka, no? I mean, hindi lang naman ito, kaya sa amin sa Movement Against Disinformation, when we started it and they asked me actually to lead a convening and chairing and actually get a lot of the legal people to come in, kasi naisip talaga namin na hindi lang ito election related or even human rights, di ba? Ako personally, I work on climate change. Ang laking problema namin sa disinformation on climate change, no? Sa pandemic, nakita natin, di ba? Ang laking disinformation. Even businesses, di ba? You deal with that, with disinformation about your business. I mean, with attacks that are made, di ba? By including extortionists, di ba? Who will do that. So I think importante yung mentality na sinasabi mo, yung critical thinking. Otherwise nga, magiging biktima tayo and we will just end up paying for it, di ba?
Yes.
I know sometimes business, they just pay. Parang nira-ransom na lang sila, di ba? Para tumigil na yung attack sa kanila. We have to learn to fight back and we have to learn so that they don't become even more dangerous now by not having too many vulnerabilities, di ba? In our youth and in our population.
Well, Rachel, I want to bring in also, I mean, media literacy is one thing, no? Mukhang kailangan din natin sa education natin yung history. Kasi butas-butas ang history na tinuturo sa atin ng mga kabataan ngayon. Halimbawa,
right. Well, they took it out of the plan. Actually, before, history was at least one semester. Now it's one quarter because they've put it together with Civica. So it's jumbled up with a lot of social studies and all other courses. So history is not given the proper attention it should. And then, as attorney said, no, the kids are visual, but actually it's part of the problem if we don't encourage them to read, because iba yung thinking process ng reading eh. So, 'di ba, in the recent international survey, ang baba ng scores ng mga bata natin sa reading. And this is alarming because it's actually the process of reading that makes people think, because it trains people in abstract thinking. Ngayon, kung we focus on visuals, feeding lang yun eh. We create a generation of couch potatoes actually. So hindi napoprocess yung mga data, even if you give it visually, the processing is different. You know, as media theory says, the medium is the message. And that's why we need to really focus on those three, no, reading, history, and media lit as a support to these two main subjects, no, and that's the only way we can address this ongoing disinformation challenge that we have.
Agree.
Well, yes, Tony, you're gonna say something.
No, I agree. And when I was talking about visual, I was just saying as a starting point, but yeah, completely. I mean, if you stay there, talagang magiging more vulnerable pa sila in the future, di ba?
O kasi, well, talking about visuals, hindi ba, patok na patok ang TikTok na yan, hindi ba? Kahit matatanda, medyo nagiging TikToker na rin.
Right. But see, it scratches the surface. It does not give us any real information, right? If if we depend, TikTok is an entertainment medium. So we
Mm.
should not, but what's happening now, people are treating it as an information medium, and that's why it's very effective for disinformation. Kasi nga mali na yung paggamit nitong
Mm.
medium na to.
Oh,
Yun yung delikado.
okay. Well, going back to you, attorney, kasi you were raising the question of paano ba, how do you hold people accountable for these things, no? Um, isn't, kasi although this is not direct proof, pero naman dun sa mga dun sa mga, I think, the studies that have been made, for example, some of the, I mean, the majority of uh, disinformation targeting people, for example, si VP Lenny is one of the most, is the most targeted disinformation target, dito sa mga candidates ngayon, no. I mean, isn't there some kind of accountability that you can trace based on the sinong nata-target o sino ang nakikinabang dito sa mga sa mga fake news na to?
Well, for sure, yung government, pwede mo siyang ma-hold accountable, di ba? Kaya we're doing that. Kasi yun ang pinaka-clear. Kasi as
Mm,
government officials, you're not supposed to do that. Of
okay.
course, the president is immune from suit, so wala tayong magagawa doon until after
Mm,
matapos siya sa term niya. But other government officials, so let's be clear about that. A lot of the fake news against VP Lenny has actually been Duterte administration incited, di ba?
mm,
And we can trace that to the extent we can do that, that can be done. I think ang problema ni VP Lenny, she also admit, was that she kind of ignored it, di ba? For a
mm.
long time. Yun din ang lesson dito. Don't ignore attacks on you because they'll stay forever. And then they can go up to crescendo by the time ang grabe na mahirapan ka na i-push back, no?
Mhm.
Um, then the next, of course, sa campaign, of course, you can hold campaigns accountable. Pero dito meron tayong tool na kulang. We don't have good campaign finance laws and rules and regulations, di ba?
Mm.
So medyo mahirap siya i-trace, no? Halimbawa, we should be able to find a way to trace kung sino yung mga binabayaran ng mga influencers, di ba? Ng isang
Okay.
kandidato. Kasi mali na naman yung influencers. By the way, we also have cases ready against influencers,
Oh,
finding the right timing, no?
okay.
Um, for that. I mean, kasi syempre, it's the individual's choice to file the case, and we're just providing the legal strategies and the lawyers, no? Ang maganda sa
Mhm.
movement against disinformation, hindi kami yung usual suspects. Syempre katrabaho namin yung mga human rights lawyers. That is where I come from, but marami kaming commercial lawyers from the top law firms that are
Mhm.
volunteering their time and
Okay.
their work on this. It's really really good. And my main partner actually is a corporate lawyer, no, si Rico Domingo, former president of taga UP din like me, but older than me, uh, senior than me, very senior in the field. So kami nagfo-front sa lahat. But ang dami naming lawyers na who really want to go into this into this area. So influencers, you can go after influencers, di ba? But still
Mm.
hindi yun ang mastermind di ba? Ang
Yeah.
mastermind is the one, the paymaster, di ba?
Mm.
May kulang pa tayo doon, lalo na context of elections. Malaman natin the money flow. That's as all things goes to for very big societal problems. Diba? There's a money flow because there's someone that benefits from
Mm.
all of the bad things happening in society. So we need to be
Okay.
able to trace that. And that's challenging, but I think eventually we'll be able to. Basta stay lang tayo lahat, diba? We're very grateful that the fact checkers are with us in this effort and actually taking the lead sa fact checking side. Kasi kung without them, how do we even know something is fake, di ba? Without fact checkers being able to actually tell us.
Okay. O sige. Attorney Tony at saka Prof. Rachel, we have to take a break. Wag po kayong mga kapatid. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back mga kaibigan. Patuloy po tayo sa ating discussion sa impact ng technology sa elections natin ngayon sa May 2022. Our guests, Professor Rachel Khan, Project Coordinator of Tsek.PH, and Attorney Tony Lavinia, Lead Convener of the Movement Against Disinformation. Bago tayo tumuloy, just want to clarify, ang pinag-uusapan natin ditong fake news, hindi ito yung mga campaign na, anong tawag nito, campaign propaganda or ng mga kandidato, kundi yung mga balita na talagang tunay na hindi totoo. Yung talagang malisyosong ginawang mali. No? So yun ang tinutukoy natin fake news. No? Okay, going back to Professor Rachel and Attorney Tony. Attorney Tony, question lang from a legal standpoint. No? Kasi merong lumalabas na, nabanggit na ito kanina na merong mga Facebook pages, for example, na entertainment ang laman normally, no? Tapos biglang nagiging daanan, it becomes the channel for a fake news item, no? May liability ba? Pwede bang habulin yung nagpapatakbo ng Facebook page kung mayroong mga ganung klaseng information na lumusot, hindi naman kasama sa entertainment o hindi naman video game yung site, yung Facebook page, pero biglang may pumapasok na fake news na gano'n. Meron bang liability kung nagma-manage ng Pwede bang
ang pag-intindi ko mo, may understanding sa ganong klaseng mga sites, ay pwedeng i-close down ng Facebook. Kasi inauthentic yung behavior na yon, di ba? Basically, deceptive siya, di ba? So, liability is a bit different kasi liability, again, always about the harm that you cause, di ba? And so, yes, kung may harm siya na ma-cause, you can find laws to make that person or that page liable, the persons behind that, di ba? But more important, more I think quicker is actually for Facebook to just close that down, di ba? Kasi bawal yan. You cannot say in Facebook na ito yung page mo and attract people to like it, and then iba pala ang laman, di ba? So yes. Yun ang way there. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, meron ng mga ginawa ang Facebook dyan na tinitake down because of that.
Okay. Well, pero Attorney Rachel, ano yung experience niyo sa Tsek.PH, no? Marami bang mga ganong klase na parang biglang sumisipot na na balita na hindi naman balita, fake news, no? Pero nanggagaling sa mga hindi I'm sorry, Professor Rachel.
Kailangan kapatid ko si attorney.
How do you answer that point, Professor?
Well, since we did not track the sites prior to this election, we really can't tell. Although, actually, I mean, it's not really part of what Czech does. But as an academic, of course, we look into that and we do see changes in the content of not just actually Facebook kahit na YouTube. Actually, mas malaganap siya sa YouTube kasi yung YouTube normally, when you create a YouTube channel, it's because you are promoting a particular product or aspect. Kunyari, you want to promote everything about coffee. So you have a coffee channel, ganyan. Tapos, we see that na yung dating kunyari coffee channel or gaming channel, biglang meron na siyang history na fake na martial law never happened, mga ganyan. Parang, diba? So that's what we see, that's what we were talking about earlier about social influencers, because they have a very big audience, a ready-made audience. They have, let's say, 1 million subscribers. It's so easy to feed them with this information because there's already a target. There's a real audience that already listens to them. So it makes it easier. Plus the fact that you can, diba, there are well, at least before there were limitations on campaign ads. It's not going to be counted as a campaign ad. So it's very insidious dahil hindi siya obvious, diba, na propaganda na siya.
Well, I don't know. This is not a campaign, but it's also about history. Like, for example, I understand based on one study of Tsek.PH, one of the number one fake news that came out, was about
the Talano gold.
No. Well, that's one. The other one is about martial law. There was a claim that wala daw na-arrest nung martial law. At
True. Or no, actually ang sinasabi nila yung mga komunista lang daw yung na-arrest or and another form of red tagging, 'di ba? When we know that that's not true. We also that EDSA 1 was a conspiracy of the church and CIA. Mga ganyang fake news na nakikita natin, no, na totally thwarting and twisting our history as we know it, no. And the thing is, we've lived this history. It's not that long ago, but it's really meant to fool people who were not yet born at the time.
Yun.
Tayong tatlo nandun na, di ba? Na-witness natin yan eh. Pero maraming there's a voting public that has not witnessed that, and that's the target.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, just to shift to another subject, but still on the subject of technology and these elections, no? Google Trends, okay? Kasi sanay na tayo na gumagamit ng opinion polls para, to predict the outcome of the elections, no? Pero there's a new kid in town, no? Actually, hindi to new, pero yun lang parang naging mas prominent, yung Google Trends, na hindi naman siya opinion polls. Pero it is being used to predict the outcome of the elections. And what's interesting is iba ang resulta doon sa opinion polls. Opinion polls leading si Ferdinand Marcos Jr., but in the Google Trends, it is VP Lenny who's leading. So can you explain how does Google Trends work? Paano ba siya pwedeng gamitin?
Google Trends actually measures the searches being done by internet users on the web, no. And you can measure it basically by time and by region. So you can look up, for example, who was researching Lenny Robredo, VP Robredo yesterday. So things like that, or this one, for example, from the beginning of the campaign to yesterday. So it's an indicator of interest, while a survey is an indicator of whatever question was asked. So if the question in the survey was who are you going to vote for, then at the time of the survey, yung sagot nung na-survey, yun yung totoo. Yung siguro, kung yung survey ay March 1, nung March 1, ito yung naisip niyang iboboto niya. Right? So kaya yun yung sinagot niya. Now, that can change, right? I mean, people can be fickle. We can say that, okay, today I'm going to vote for this person, and then I find out new information, and I change my mind. So the thing that Google Trends tells us is the interest of the people. So it's positive in the sense that there are a lot of people interested to know more about VP Robredo as against all the other candidates. But it's an expression of interest and may not necessarily translate to votes. Plus, the problem with Google Trends is, and here is where this information comes in, we know what they searched for, but in the end, we don't know what they clicked and read, right? So if they read the wrong things, patay na. Right? Yun.
It's striking, like, for example, attorney at saka professor, the Google Trends correctly predicted the outcome of several U.S. elections. Actually,
you are talking about the U.S. and France and Finland, where people are readers.
Pero
and also there's a high percentage of internet users. In the country, we have 68% only of the population on the internet.
Well, I just latest report, Professor, is 75% raw internet penetration sa Pilipinas as of 2021. But in any case,
but a lot of that is elementary because of online classes. They're not necessarily the voting population.
Yes, that's true. So go ahead, Tony.
And if I may add, di ba, even those Google Trends predictions supported, din siya, the polling was also in favor of those results, di ba? In other words, for me, data point naman yung Google Trends, data point naman yung social media interactions. Data point yung rallies, di ba? Pero lahat kasi yan, data point din yung opinion polls, di ba? But may sequence dapat yan. Ang sequence dyan, di ba? You dominate social media, you create very big rallies, and then you convert that into polling preferences, which is still not the vote. And then you convert that in actual vote, di ba?
Yes.
Ang question ngayon is how in this process ngayon, nako-compress siya, di ba? But perfect example yung Duterte campaign. Although Duterte had to jump only 10-15 points to go into the lead, di ba? In 2016. But in January, February, dominated traditional media and social media. In March, phenomenal rallies that we've never seen before, na yung self-organized volunteer rallies, the kind of rallies that Lenny now has in even bigger crowds, di ba? But by April, nagli-lead na si Duterte sa polling. So ganun, di ba? Ganun ang sequence Ganun ang sequence. So but we're not sure now. Di ba? Lalo na wala tayong tracking polls. Right now kasi last time may weekly polls tayo. Ngayon, di ba? By one firm, polls ko siya. Track di ba?
Yes, that's why polls were more accurate in 2019. True.
Every week for 9 weeks, for 10 weeks, di ba? Ngayon, they're just doing monthly polls. From what I heard, the last poll will be last week of April so that's 10 days before the election. Hindi mo talaga siya matatrack yung ganitong interaction ng So maraming fake news na rin mapapasok because of that. Kasi
bakit nagbago?
No, walang ABS-CBN. ABS-CBN was the one that funded the weekly polls. They had the capital to do that and the interest to do that, di ba? That's 7 to 10 million pesos a week to be able to do that, di ba?
Well, that's something that's being sorely missed right now, and it would be helpful to the general public, if that was being continued, So in other words, Google Trends can tell you some things, but it's not an opinion poll, and we still have to look at opinion polls and how they, para tignan natin, how do they jibe or mutually reinforce each other? Parang ganun bang sinasabi mo, Professor Rachel?
No, well, they don't mutually reinforce each other. Polls have a different reason for being than Google Trends. The positive thing about Google Trends is it shows us that there is a growing interest in a particular candidate and a lack of interest in the other candidates. Diba? That's the positive thing. Because if we look at the trend, I mean, not just the totals that you flashed, but if we were to compare I was just doing a study on January to Feb Google Trends as against March to April, and you could see a big jump in the interest of the people. So the rallies are creating interest, and one can hope that those rallies translate that the interest that those rallies bring will also make people realize or make people look for the real data of the credentials of the different candidates, and help them decide when they get to the polls.
Sige,
diba, there's an explanation for all of this, diba? Both the Google Trends and the rallies, diba? Which is that Lenny Robredo's supporters are passionate, enthusiastic. They go to rallies, etc. And that's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong about that. That's very good. But they actually have to go to their neighbors, diba? Marcos supporters might not be very passionate, but they will still vote for Marcos because their barangay leader told them, and nobody talked to them in a polite and respectful way why they should change their votes. If you ask me, that's what's needed, di ba? Otherwise, fake news ngayon, yung Google Trends, fake news, then wag na lang tayo magkampanya, di ba? Wag na tayo magkampanya kasi panalo na pala.
Okay, we have to take a break, Attorney at saka Professor, and we'll be right back to take questions from our audience. Mga kapatid, wag po kayong umalis. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back here with our guest, si Attorney Lavinia at saka si Professor Rachel. Let's bring them back. Okay, and now we're taking questions. Very interesting itong mga tanong na pumapasok. No? Here's a very, very down-to-earth question. No? From Daisy de Gulacion. May ma-advise po ba kayo? Kasi yung tatay ko ang hilig maniwala sa fake news sa YouTube. Tapos nagagalit kapag pinagsasabihan ko. Paano po ba niya malalaman na agad na fake news ang pinapanood niya? Not an easy question actually. And how do you answer that one?
I would suggest that i-present na lang niya yung mga na-fact check tapos pabasa niya instead of saying outright na yan fake news yan, mag-present na lang siya nung mga tamang impormasyon, 'di ba? And help her father decide for himself that information.
So para hindi na sila mag-away.
Yeah, oo. I'm sure naman na-cover yan ng Tsek.PH. Doon na lang sila. Pakita na lang yung website.
Nabanggit mo rin, Professor, how can an ordinary person get, let's say, on their phone, yung ma-access yung information on Tsek.PH?
Ay nasa Facebook, Twitter, Viber, TikTok, YouTube. Take
So,
your
hanapin.
pick. Nandun kami. Opo.
Yeah,
hanapin
everywhere.
sa page.
Walang
Hanapin.
excuse kasi nandyan everywhere ang fact.ph.
Oh, well, the spelling of Tsek.PH is Tsek.
Tsek. Yes. PH.
Baka ibang isulat nyo. How do you answer that one, Attorney?
I would follow whatever Professor Rachel said, but ako Tsek.ph na tinitingnan ko to be sure.
Okay, here's a more difficult question from K. Antoy. No? According to SWS survey months ago, around 50% o kalahati ng mga Pinoy hirap na ma-determine ang fake news sa hindi. Bakit po ganito at anong pwede nilang gawin para malampasan yung ganitong klaseng challenge?
Well, unang-una, pinapahirapan talaga tayo na naglalaganap ng mga fake news, no? Talagang they make it difficult for us to determine the truth. So, for one thing, they can start having the habit of fact-checking before they share something. Alam mo, Google lang eh. Ang unang step ay i-Google mo. Minsan doon pa lang nakukuha mo na yung sagot. Tapos, the source, no? It's better to make sure that the source is not from a Viber or a Facebook page that's called shopgirl.com or something like that, but a trusted media. At makikita na yung mga apps, it helps us by putting a blue check, it's a sign of verified source. Yung may blue check sa tabi nung pangalan nung media source or nung website na yon. So that's one clue about whether a source is good or not.
Ang isang interesting thing na nakita ko mo, I mean, and we've also dealt with traditional media, di ba, for many years. Actually, itong nangyari ngayon has actually improved traditional media and their fact-checking abilities. Kasi, and sila na ngayon, yun na nakakatawa, sila yung pupuntahan mo to actually check, I mean, in terms of the, aside from the academic fact-checking and the civil society fact-checking, di ba? Traditional media actually has now a even more important role, di ba? I don't even... Professor Rachel, ano bang traditional media isn't the right term, di ba? Kasi it's really...
Legacy media. It's the new term.
Anong pangalan?
Legacy media.
Legacy mo. Mas yun.
Yung mga dyaryo, radyo, TV. Yan yung bagong term.
Okay. Sige. Sandali there's may pa isang biglang may pumasok na tanong pa. Wait. Anyway, we've come to this portion of the program na tawag namin dito ay i-connect sa tech, no? May basic question na parang to sum up the discussion so far tonight, no? May paraan ba para malaman sa social media kung ang isang post ay fake news o hindi. Okay? How would you summarize this thing? Professor Rachel.
Siguro ang una mong titignan kung saan nanggaling yung impormasyon, no? Hindi pwedeng friend of a friend. Mas maganda talaga is to go back to the trusted media sites. Not to and when we look at information, not yung nasa news feed mo ng Facebook, kasi maraming kunyari nagkukunwaring CNN, yung logo ng CNN linalagay pero yung pala fake news din yon kasi iba yung gumawa, hindi si CNN. No, so
Okay.
mas maganda is bumalik tayo dun sa website nung mismong media para nakikita talaga natin na totoo ito. No, hindi lang yung kung ano yung nakapaskil dun sa news feed mo sa Facebook.
Okay. Anything you want to add, attorney?
Hindi na, I agree completely with Professor Rachel.
Okay, sige. Well, baka makasingit pa ako ng isang tanong, no? Sandali, just before we run out of time, no? Sandali. Merong isang tanong dito. This is one, I think this one has to go to you, attorney, no? Kung kalat ang fake news online, dapat pang i-regulate ito ng gobyerno o ng isang private entity? Anong pwedeng control dito, attorney?
Not government. I really don't government kasi trust government then because it becomes a political tool, di ba? Yung lens na ganon. It has to be, ako talaga naniniwala ako na we have to keep engaging with the social media companies on their own policies and hold them accountable for that. Responsive sila, mabagal lang. Ang gusto ko sana na pag na-flag mo na, halimbawa mga fact checkers, na-flag na nila, 'di ba? Immediately ibaba na nila, 'di ba? At wag gamiting excuse yung freedom of speech, 'di ba? Wag gamiting excuse na marami silang excuses for that, pero hindi talaga siya dapat gamitin. As long as legitimately flagged na as fake news, pull it down na right away, 'di ba?
Okay. Sana naman ganun ang mangyari, attorney. Maraming salamat, Professor Rachel. Thank you very much for your time. I know kayong dalawa super busy. Good luck sa atin sa lahat sa darating na ilang mga linggo. Thank you very much again.
Salamat, Mon.
Salamat, Mon. Ingat.
Okay. Thank you again to our guest at maraming salamat din po sa inyong lahat for joining us tonight. Sana naman po ay meron po kayong napulot na mga aral paano malalaman kung fake news o hindi. Check nyo yung sa Tsek.PH. No? You can find that in Viber, in Facebook, etc. At talagang itong show na ito ay patunay na laging tandaan. Malaki po ang pakinabang ng mga gadget at saka mga social media. Pero teka muna. Think before you click. Ako po ulit si Monis Berto, ang inyong Tech Lolo. Magandang gabi po mula sa amin dito sa Teka Muna. Kami po ang 1PH Teleserbisyo para sa Pilipino.